Shout out to bring our Q Julius, you legend. We're going to do a joint interview, yeah? Yeah, we'll do a joint interview, Julius. Thanks for the support. You're a legend. From your girls, Raven and Ellie.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news. Ow!
Okay, we'll start with this. What was Ellie Scotney, unified super bantamweight champion Ellie Scotney's reaction to this past weekend's action, this weekend's decision in the Mercado versus Ali fight? In so many words, what Ellie said was, it's time to make the unification. The unification between herself and the winner of that fight, what still is WBC champion at this weight, Yemi Mercado. I want to make one thing clear, that I don't think Yemi actually did enough to win a decision or keep the WBC title. I think that Ramla Ali showed the better work, the cleaner boxing. I think Ramla was robbed.
But there's nothing we can do about that now.
Yemi Mercado is still WBC Super Bantamweight champion, the longest reigning champion at this weight, whereas Ellie is this division's only unified champion. These are the only two champions at the weight right now.
As a result of Erica Cruz being stripped of her WBA title for testing positive for Winstrol,
there is no WBA champion at this time. Thus, Yemi Mercado is the only titleist of any kind at this weight, at this time, that Ellie can so target for a unification match. Until such a time as a fight is ordered between Nazarena Romero and Mayerlin Rivas to determine this division's next WBA champion, it's down to Ellie and Yemi. Now, even before this past weekend's fight and this past weekend's outcome, even before that, I always liked Ellie Scotney's chances against either Yemi Mercado or Ramla Ali if she would have won. I've always thought that Ellie is a cut above these fighters. That's with respect to Ramla Ali, who I think deserved to win this weekend, but she didn't. I'm big on Ramla, but I am even bigger on Ellie. I think that Ellie has the youth that Ramla doesn't have, the adaptability, a better grade of it. She's a more fluid fighter to me, inside and outside.
Inside and outside the pocket.
That Ellie Scotney has everything it takes to become this division's undisputed champion. And seemingly a part of that is beating Yemi Mercado, where Ramla did not. And as stated, even before this weekend's fight, I liked Ellie's chances against either Yemi Mercado or Ramla Ali. Do they make the fight? It's my understanding that it took a lot of convincing and it took a pretty penny to get Yemi in the ring with Ramla Ali, but after several attempts, they managed to make the fight. I think it would take even more money and more effort to make a fight between Yemi and Ellie.
And I don't see their fight happening in Arizona.
In front of a partial crowd, partial judges, and all of their partial scoring.
I don't see their fight happening in Arizona.
Where they flew out Ramla to America for the Mercado fight, I think they're going to try to fly out Mercado for the Scotney fight. Fly her out to the United Kingdom,
which is going to cost them.
To get her on the plane and get her to the UK so that she can have the fight with Ellie, it's going to cost them.
It is.
But I am a lot more confident in Ellie's boxing than I was in Ramla's. And that's not a knock on Ramla, but Ellie really is a very special fighter. Her strength, her main strength, is that she's adaptable. She plays the aggressor and the defender equally well, even though she's not big on power.
She can handle herself mid-range to inside in the pocket better, I think. Much better than Ramla Ali.
Where Ramla is at her best, on the move and on her toes, shooting straight punches. Ellie can do that, but she can do a bit more than just that. Mid-range to inside, she's a pretty good combination puncher, even though she's not big on power.
She can work.
Throw short hooks, mid-range to inside, body punches.
She can work.
So I like Ellie Scotney to win the fight if they make it, if they make the fight between her and Yemi Mercado. Once again, I think it's going to take some convincing.
It's going to take some dollars.
Pounds. To get her to fly over to the United Kingdom. I have the sneaking suspicion that that's where they would want to do it. They're going to try to. And if they do, I've got Ellie Scotney on points. I think she can fight a much, much better version of the fight that Ramla Ali fought. Enough that she can lift the green belt from Yemi. Men's super bantamweight news. Veteran boxing scribe Ryan O'Hara says, I'm hearing a fight between Naoya Inoue and his countryman Junto Nakatani is being explored. This is a mega fight. 4-division champion versus 3-division champion. For those not already aware, Junto is a 3-weight champion, and currently he holds the WBC title at 118 pounds. He knocked out Mexico's Santiago for it,
Alejandro Santiago,
effectively becoming a 3-weight champion. There are 4 champions at 118 pounds, alongside Junto Nakatani.
So, what if he unifies a couple of those titles?
While Naoya Inoue, upstairs at 122, makes a couple of defenses of his titles against TJ Doheny, Sam Goodman, subsequently MJ Akhmadaliev. He stays there. He doesn't go up to featherweight. He stays at 122. He fights MJ Akhmadaliev instead. That's about 3 fights. That would go into next year so that they can cap off the following year with what could be Inoue versus Nakatani.
What about the featherweight division?
Let me tell you something about the featherweight division. There are too many guys in the featherweight division waiting for Inoue to move up. There are 4 champions there. Why don't you guys unify with each other, take out the competition, and whoever the last man standing is, let him fight Naoya Inoue, because it's not like Inoue's about to move up there.
Not right away.
And not if they are now entertaining the possibility of a Junto Nakatani fight, which comparatively, compared to all those fights with all those guys at 126, the Nakatani fight is much bigger than that. That is a much bigger fight in Japan than any of those fights at 126 would be here in America.
Stop sitting on your hands, stop waiting on the naturally smaller fighter to move up, and unify your division like you're supposed to.
I don't like stuff like that. And I don't like this proposed rush that Inoue has to rush up to what would be his 5th weight when David Benavidez got to sit at super middleweight for something like 10 years before he moved up to light heavyweight. Gervonta Davis has been sitting at 135 for 5
years.
Gennady Golovkin was practically a career middleweight. So that when a fighter comes along who's been a champion at more weights than any of them and accomplished more in the sport than any of them, he's a 2-time undisputed champion where none of them have ever been undisputed.
You want to rush him? You want to put pressure on him to move up?
I don't like this Western brand of hypocrisy. I don't like the double standards. And while I don't mind Inoue moving up to 126, I've said it many times, it's not something that he has to do or should do in a jiffy. So many other fighters get to sit on their hands.
And they haven't done half the stuff he's done.
Moreover, I don't want the featherweight division to sit in limbo, sit and wait for what is a naturally smaller fighter to move up before they decide to do anything. There are 4 champions at that weight. Let's get some unification matches going.
2 of them are on the same side of the street, Rafael Espinoza and Luis Lopez.
Another isn't far behind, Liverpool's Nick Ball, newly crowned WBA champion. He's Frank Warren's fighter, and Frank Warren is good buddies with Bob Arum. So a fight between Nick and them is entirely doable.
I've already heard Brooklyn's own Shushu Carrington call out Inoue, Rafael Espinoza, Luis Lopez. I mean, give me a break.
To unify your division.
You're gonna let the division stagnate, waiting for a naturally smaller fighter to move up in weight? Is that what we're doing?
This is why I've maintained Inoue should sit at 122 a while longer. There's no rush. There's no fight so big at 126 that he should be in a hurry to go up there. He hasn't been at 122 all that long. And comparatively, the Junto Nakatani fight in Japan is bigger than any of those fights at 126. So he should stick around long enough that he can have it.
Stay at 122. Now as it pertains to 126, Shushu Carrington, who I just mentioned, appears to be ranked at number 1 via the WBA.
He appears to be in line to challenge newly crowned WBA champion Nick Ball, who I just mentioned, and as stated, Frank and Bob have a good working relationship to where when the time comes, the fight between them can be made. Though for it to be made, I think Bruce Carrington would have to travel. I do. I think that Nick Ball has paid his dues enough.
He's been in the ring with a former champion in Isaac Dogbay, a reigning champion in Ray Vargas and Ray Savage.
I don't get the sense he's going to be the one that has to travel. I get the sense that if Bruce Carrington wants his shot at the WBA title, he's going to have to to get his passport out, he's going to have to get on a plane, and he's going to have to go to the UK. And when he gets there, he's going to have to make it emphatic.
He has to.
Nick Ball is best described as a mid-range to inside pressure fighter. In many ways, he has to be because he's so much smaller than everybody else at the weight. He's very small for a featherweight. So he's in a position where he has to get close to you. The good thing is, he's good at that.
He's a pretty good pressure fighter.
Physically strong, mid-range to inside, and in the clinch due to his lower center of gravity, which can make an awkward situation for a lot of taller, longer fighters. He's got a lower center of gravity and a lot of musculature, which makes for a lot of physical strength.
That's why he's able to render so many taller, longer fighters off balance.
He's physically strong, he's formidable, and he is noticeably more experienced than Shushu Carrington, who is on the eve of his world title shot, his world title opportunity. He's ranked at number 1, and he's very talented, Shushu.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of Terrence Crawford.
He can box, he can bang, he can move, punch, he's adaptable, seems to have great ring savvy, but as stated, he hasn't fought the same kind of fighters that Nick Ball has already fought. So that would be a noticeable step up in class for Bruce Carrington! The reason you can give Bruce a fighting chance in spite of his lack of experience is his talent level. That he's good on the outside, good on the inside, he can do a little bit of everything, and he has power. He's got dog in him.
Do you like that?
Deck might be stacked against Shushu a little bit, but he's got enough talent. I mean, he's shown me enough so far that I would give him a fighting chance against Nick Ball if and when the time comes. Now, I don't know if that's going to be Bruce's next fight, his very next fight, but given where he is in the rankings, it's not that far off.
I could see Nick Ball making a hometown defense of his newly obtained WBA title in Liverpool en route to what could be a Bruce Carrington fight later on this year or next year.
But I see it happening because he's ranked at number 1 right now.
It's only a matter of time.
Finally, elsewhere in the world of boxing, former unified middleweight champion Gennady Golovkin is now fighting to keep boxing in the Olympics, an area of focus. Gennady Golovkin may or may not be retired from the ring. He hasn't entirely closed the door on the prospect of returning for the perfect opportunity, but he certainly hasn't finished fighting. His latest challenge, however, isn't defeating an overmatched middleweight contender, but battling to keep boxing in the Olympics. With Paris 2024 just around the corner, Golovkin, the new head of Kazakhstan's National Olympic Committee, himself a former Olympian, is hoping he can use his experience and status in the game to help ensure boxing is still part of proceedings when Olympic circus rolls into LA in 2028. I never announced my retirement, and it's against my nature to make any loud announcements, the former middleweight champion said through a translator in a recent interview with Boxing Scene. So time will tell. Right now, I have this task, and I love what I'm doing. At the same time, to me, life is movement. And if a big challenge comes my way and I see that it's a good way to switch gears, a good way to realign my path or my movement, I might accept this challenge. So we might see another fight with me, the future Hall of Famer whose last outing was a decision loss to Canelo Alvarez in 2022, does, however, concede that he had begun significantly winding down his physical activity when the opportunity arose to pursue a new position. It's not that I offered my services or they approached me directly, he said when asked how his new job came to be. It was just a chain of circumstances, and the fact that I was scaling down my professional career, I stopped training every day and I started to have more free time in my life. I care about sports in general. Sports are very close to my heart, and it is an opportunity for me to contribute to the development of sport in my country. I'm an athlete. I'm on the athlete's side. I'm not a bureaucrat, not a politician. I'm for the people, for athletes. And when the election of the president of the National Olympic Committee came about, I agreed to take part, and that's how I got elected. His position requires him to learn about and support all manner of Olympic athletes.
But what can he do by himself to save boxing from being removed from the Olympics?
I think that our athletes should be in a better position. But whereas Golovkin, the pro boxer, was famous for his unrelenting aggression, he is less direct about what he sees as the biggest problems Olympic athletes are facing. We need to fight corruption, he offered, in general terms, and we need to eradicate the opportunities for corruption, to make corruption not possible. And I'm not talking about any particular country, I'm saying that is the universal problem.
That's what could see boxing removed from the Olympics.
And that is the issue that needs to be tackled. Though I don't know that Golovkin by himself, or any singular sovereign individual has what it takes to correct such a widespread problem. Few sports go hand in hand with corruption more than boxing, but even the cesspool of professional prize fighting has to yield to the unholy mess that is the sport's amateur program. The International Olympic Committee has withdrawn recognition of the International Boxing Association, IBA, as the international federation for the sport, leaving it without any long-term governance. Boxing at the Paris Games is being organized by the IOC itself, but the committee has made it clear that it is not a tenable solution beyond this summer. The amateur programs in some countries, including the United Kingdom and the United States, have founded an alternative to the IBA called World Boxing, but Golovkin would not be drawn when asked whether he would encourage Kazakhstan to join it. The solution is for all the countries to get together to sit down and discuss and reach a solution on how to keep boxing as part of the Olympic program. The amateur system is the backbone for the pros, because that's where some of the best pros come from the amateurs. If
the amateurs lose what is their Super Bowl, if they lose the Olympics, what is that going to do to amateur boxing?
Gennady seems on more comfortable ground when sharing his personal feelings about the mess in which Olympic boxing is embroiled. It upsets me, he confessed. It saddens me, and I think the situation is unacceptable, not because I'm a boxer, but because boxing is one of the most popular sports in the world, and it's extremely hard to imagine an Olympic Games without boxing. So we need to do pretty much anything possible to keep boxing as part of the Olympic program, and I think that it is important to keep it because it gives the jump start for boxers. It gives them an opportunity to continue with their professional careers after they finish their amateur careers. So boxing has to be part of the Olympics. Golovkin will be in Paris, where he and other national committee heads will be discussing how to save the sport's participation in the games. We have a plan that is pretty much straightforward, and that's what can be used in order to reach a result or look for a solution, he said cryptically, by the way of explanation of his agenda for the games. The Olympics have been as much about external factors as athletic competition almost since the modern-day Olympiad began.
Think Jesse Owens in Berlin in 1936, the massacre of Israeli athletes in Munich in 1972, successive boycotts in 1976, 1980, and 1984,
or the global pandemic that threatened to derail the Tokyo Olympics in 2020 and ultimately delayed it by a year. Golovkin, who won the silver at the 2004 Games in Athens, urges athletes participating in Paris to rise above the background noise and embrace the Olympic ethos.
They better. This might be the last one.
Do not put results above your integrity, above your honesty, above your pride. He said no. No matter what happens, you have to be a person of integrity and avoid selling yourself at all costs. At the same time, he encourages them to savor every moment. It is an amazing experience, he said. The opening ceremony, the closing ceremony, and especially if you get a medal and you're a champion. So yes, most of all, I would tell them to enjoy it. But that doesn't really solve the problem, does it?
Who can?
Turkey al-Sheikh. The only person I can think of with the resources to get everything together.
Bring everyone to the table, the same way that he brought all those promoters to the table.
All these nations, bring them to the table. Work something out, because time is of the essence. If you want to keep boxing in the Olympics, you need to get on it now.